Okay, I'm Sue Lister, and this is Anne Murray, my partner in life. And we have started AWOC York back in January 2016. And let's kick off by asking Anne, what are the sorts of things in this peer support group that we get up to?
Well, I'm Anne the Canadian. I am an AWOC, Aging Without Children, in England, but I do have 3 children and 5 grandchildren in Vancouver. But during the pandemic, I drove probably over 20 people to have their jab for the, excuse me. And they called me Anne's Jab Cab, which I thought was quite good. Sue asked me to phone people who weren't on computers, and the first day of each month, I think I did it for 3 years, phoned 13 people every first day of the month, and found out how they were coping with the pandemic, and hear the stories, and it was a really wonderful thing. I think I did that for 3 years. So that was a lifeline. I believe in it. It was just a lifeline. And I continue to shop. This will be the 4th year I've shopped for 3 others, including us, every Tuesday each week. Now, I'm not the only one helping, because we have people in AWOC who have been instrumental in helping others. One person in particular who looked after and cared for a woman who was selling her house, went to help her take everything out of the house, found a place for it, ferried her around. It was invaluable to her. And so there are other people who are doing things and helping our mutual friends, our AWOC people.
Just to say, that lady was from South Africa.
Yes.
She's blind. Her husband died. She got left alone in her house, big house, not able to see documents and goodness knows what online, etc. And an older person and not able to actually shift things around and sort things out. So it was David's help there was hugely important. Anyway, so that's what a peer support sort of group does. Right, so AWOC itself, just to reiterate what I've got my fingers in, the pies, as a vegan, in my vegan pies, I've got my finger in. There's AWOC York, started in January 2016. There's the York LGBT Forum, which I joined in 2006 and have been on the committee ever since and a trustee. And we take into care homes, now specifically speaking about care and dignity and individuals and so on, take into care homes free to be me in care. And that comes under the LGBT Forum work. We've also started Real People Theatre, which is a women's theatre company, when we came back from Canada. And our shows have been, since 2000, we've done a show every year for York International Women's Week. And in 2018, we did No Kidding, ? No Kidding, specifically on aging without children issues. And then the final thing I've got my finger in is the York Older People's Assembly. And I've been on that since 2002. So retirement is not a nice, easy and laid back and leisurely thing. Anyway, so I'm resurgent. And I started the York 50+ Festival in 2005. And that has up to 150 events every year celebrating the 1st of October, International Day of Older People. So get in touch with me if you want to know anything about any of those 4 different activities. AWOC itself was started by Kirsty Woodard, who had been working with older people for 20 years or so, and suddenly had a light bulb moment. Most of the people she worked with, did not have anybody around to visit them, to give advice, to be there in time of need, to go with them to hospital appointments, to cut the grass, mow the lawn, do the gardening, whatever it was, there wasn't anybody there. And so she thought to herself, aha, AWOC, and went on Women's Hour on the radio, and started asking questions about it in 2014, 2015. It is now a charity, a national charity, and we have got 8 local area groups coming down from Middlesbrough, York, Leeds, Gloucestershire, Lincolnshire, Dorset, Hastings, East Kent. These local groups spread around the country, but they aren't enough. There are not enough local groups. And we want to seed more of them. So we really need AWOC, the charity, to get money and spread these seeds of local groups, local peer support groups. Just as a matter of interest, the one in Gloucestershire is run by Age UK. So if we have any Age UK or other big age organizations, you could have an AWOC group in your area. So I'm just seeding those seeds now. That's what it's, because I've got people all over the blooming country and as far away as South Carolina, because there is not enough knowledge about what this is all about. Right, it isn't only because you haven't got children, it's because you haven't got children by choice, that's me, by circumstances, because you never ran into the right person and didn't, by infertility, you couldn't have children, all right, you're already knocking up the thousands, by people whose children have died, bereavement, all those people who have disabled children so they can't look after them, mental health problems in their children or with themselves, more thousands, children who've gone away, that's a big wing, they've gone away, they've got jobs elsewhere, they've emigrated, they've gone to Australia, they've gone to London, whatever, they're not nearby, ready to lend a hand. And finally, you don't want to be a burden. Your children have gone, they're doing their own things, you don't want to be a burden on them and keep ringing them up and saying whatever it is that you need. Like millions of people who are aging without the support of children or nearby family. And it's got to be put on the agenda. You've got to pull your finger. Government has got to pull its finger out. Local government has got to pull its finger out. The NHS has got to put it on the agenda. Social care has got to put it on the agenda, because where is the budget for social care and health care and transport and people not on digital? Where is the network, the safety net? Where is the safety net for people who are aging alone and without children or family? That's why it's so important. All right, so AWOC York started by Anna-Me in 2016, and we now have monthly meetings, hybrid meetings, so people can come in person and have lunch at Spark York, and then we go up to the meeting room, and we've got a speaker every month on something relating to being on your own. And then I take profuse notes and do a recording, and all those recordings of speakers are now on YouTube, Lister Interactions. Lister Interactions, all one word. You can look them up and see who's been speaking and what we've been hearing about. Okay, and we also have weekly, and we've just had it, 11 o'clock on Thursday mornings, weekly Zoom meetings, a social, to find out how everybody's doing and share whatever thoughts or feelings or resources that people have. And I make notes of that as well. And all that goes in my monthly missive. And so I've got over 270 people on my monthly missive, and it goes out with talks and resources and notes and everything else. So if you want to be in that, get in touch with me. I'll put something in the chat when I finish burbling on. Okay, and to show the importance of this, I was reminded that I had done an interview with That's TV York in 2018 when I was wanting to hold auditions for No Kidding. And so I did this interview and I said, well, this is about people who are aging without children, and burbled on a bit. And it was recorded. And somebody said to me about a year or so ago, Sue, do you know you've got 2.7 million views of that interview? I said, you're joking, of course. They said, no, I'm not. Go and have a look. And I'll put that in the chat as well. And it's a little interview about aging without children. And there are 16,762 comments on this 2.7 million view video. So I was flabbergasted. I said, my goodness. Well, that just shows how important aging without children is to all these people who've been on the link. Anyway, and so then I just happened to be talking to the director of adult social care and integration in York as part of the 4-member panel who had been on her interview, and we'd interviewed Sarah Story, and so we were now catching up. Well, she's got the job now. Here we are all again, all with our different networks and interests and being AWOC, etc. And I launched a proposal that said we need to find out how many people in our communities, local community, are aging without the support of children, because it will have a knock-on effect on your, Sarah, your social care budget. Do you know how many AWOCs there are in York? No. Does the new mayor of York and North Yorkshire, the rural North York, does he know how many AWOCs there are in under his care, his responsibility? No. So what we need is research to find out how many people. And somebody came up, Joy came up with she's another AWOC, came up with an excellent idea. Ask, when you go to your GP surgery for something, and in your notes, put down, I am an AWOC and will be in need of support. And we've got 5 or 6, is this all I wanted to say? Yes, I've got 5 or 6 minutes. You've got to start somewhere. So if you want to start an AWOC group in your area, just start somewhere, go and talk to somebody like Age UK or whatever and say, can we start? You have to have a vehicle to ride on. We rode on the 50 Plus festival and had an event in a festival.
Right.
And people gathered, oh, you've never heard of AWOC, what on earth's going on? Let's diddly do. It's spread from there throughout. So people now are saying, what is this AWOC all about? How can we get in touch? We need to make sure it's a campaigning peer support group.
Okay.
So that's how, and then it grows.
Okay.
And grows.
So it's grown tremendously by the sounds of things. Right. I've got any questions?
Yeah.
I also feel that Liz did a last time we had a Zoom meeting, it spoke about carers, and you know that when you talked about the statistics, it made me think about what Liz had actually shared at the last Zoom that we had about there being more carers in the country than there are NHS workers, and I think that's a tremendous figure to think about. And if you add up all those unknown AWOCs, it would be, I don't know, it would be universal. The numbers would be, yeah, I'm sure they'd be catastrophic and we won't know, we won't be able to count them. Thank you very much for the input. It's really good to know about the groups, and I'm sure the people who need those services are really going to be interested to know that they do exist. And I really appreciate both of you coming along to tell everyone today. I don't think there's any more questions. Have I missed anyone? You want to say something and then we're going to pass over to the Neil, is it next? Go.
Yes, because there's so many of us, it's difficult to talk. So I would really urge people who want to share
Well, I will do, darling.
Yeah. AWOCness and all that sort of lark to come and join one of our Zooms on a Thursday morning at 11 o'clock.
That's lovely. Or even join on your YouTube. My word, millions of viewers, 2 million viewers. That's going some, that is so well done. And yes, have a look at the YouTube and also join the groups. I'm sure people will get something from it, just to know more and to be able, maybe people are from, as you said, a lot of different backgrounds, and they may be able to point people in the right direction.
Can I share this? Can you all see this now, just as a matter of interest? That's the one I've got on at the moment, and that's our team that goes into Free to Be Me in Care. There's Neil, there's Anne and Sue, and there's Martina, and we're going into care homes. So bear that in mind as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Anne. And that's really helpful. And what a motley group you are. Beautiful. May I say. May I now hand over to Neil, who, as we say, is sitting so relaxed because he's been sunning himself in Lanzarote. And you're going to talk about your friend, I believe, who is LGBT and the experiences that he's had. But I would like, if you can think as you're coming across, and what are the messages that you want to give to all these people so that they'll know and they'll be a little bit well armed into how to work with people with LGBT, but equally with dementia too. And all, not to forget, they're all individuals, unique and special. Thank you. Thanks, Neil.
Right, good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm sunning myself in beautiful Lanzarote. So I'm not going to hang around for long because the sun's shining at long last. It's not been the best of weeks, I hasten to add. There's been a lot of cloud and a lot of wind, not personal, climatological. And so I need to get out there and get a suntan before I return tomorrow. So yes, welcome everybody. My name is Neil. I'm gay, out, loud and proud. Let me just do a little bit on sort of inclusivity and diversity, and then I'll just expand that as I go through. So as a member of the LGBT communities, that means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. We also have QIA, which is queer or questioning, intersex, asexual, and then anything else. And I think by the time we get to 2026, we might have the whole alphabet, but we'll just see. Inclusivity and diversity is very important to the whole community, and the effects non-inclusion has on our everyday lives is scary and unnecessary. especially in a modern, supposedly caring society and hopefully world. We must also consider that inclusivity is not just about sexual orientation or gender identity, but other things such as food and dietary considerations and disabilities. But the list is endless. Right, so it is usual to see in cafes, restaurants and food outlets that the ingredients are listed and that there are vegan and vegetarian options available. We also need to ensure that we include other neglected minorities, especially those with physical and mental health issues. Inclusivity is a very wide-ranging and all-inclusive subject and touches all of us at some time or another. So focusing on the LGBT communities, which have experienced considerable discrimination, prejudice and exclusion. Today's world is very small thanks to fast, extensive and comfortable travel. I can't say I experienced that coming here, but well, perhaps it is sometimes. And a world where things are no longer black and white, but very much rainbow coloured. The Western world, as we know it, is becoming much more inclusive, tolerant and accepting of the LGBT communities. And why not? We cannot help the way we are made and the people that we love. Around 10% of the total population will be from the LGBT community, so ensuring that they are included is a must. I'm not saying that they should be top of the agenda, but they need to definitely be part of it. It was not until 1967 that the Sexual Offences Act in England and Wales decriminalised homosexuality, and in real terms, that's a very short time ago. And that was between consenting adults aged over 21 and in private. So private not meant in a hotel or a guest house or a rented room or a shared house. It had to be your own property. And age 21 in those days was the days of the age of majority and when you could vote. Changes did not take place in Scotland until 1981 and in Northern Ireland until 1982. The other things we need to bear in mind that being gay was classed as a mental illness up until 1993, when the World Health Organization decided that that was no longer right and was rescinded. And it wasn't until 2000 when actually we all got equality thanks to the government of Tony Blair and then the introduction of civil partnerships. So strictly speaking, we've only been free for 23, 24 years. So unfortunately, there are still 70 countries in the world where being an out member of the LGBT community is classed as criminal, and some 10 countries where the death penalty is still available as part of their judiciary. And that includes the Caribbean, a large portion of the Caribbean, a large portion of Central Africa and much of the Middle East, although there are still very scary places where you are supposedly okay, but in places like Russia, it definitely is not the case. And Hungary teeters on the brink of being sometimes good, sometimes bad. In Nigeria, for example, if you're caught in a same-sex relationship, especially for men, you can expect 23 years in jail, and for women, it's 9 years. And I got those figures from a chap with whom I do the LGBT induction training for the Royal British Legion at their care home in Ripon. He was a Nigerian care worker, nice chap, lovely chap, and we were just talking about things generally, and I asked him what happens in Nigeria if you are caught. He said 23 years in jail for men, 9 years for women. So I said to him, he was a family man, what happened if you wanted to go back to Nigeria and take your family, or one of your children came up to you and said, I'm gay? He said, as far as I'm concerned, here it would not be a problem, but if we had to go back to Nigeria, we would have great difficulties. So yes, the world is still a scary place in parts. Fortunately, Lanzarote is fine, but I'm having a week off. So let's just talk about my particular experience with my late partner, John, and his dementia. We got together in 1974, where, as you can tell from what I've just said, the world was in a very, very different place. We suffered homophobic abuse and all sorts of nasties along the way. And he built around himself a screen which tried to protect himself. He was 9 years older than me. So when we got together, he was 39, I was 30. In fact, this year it would have been 50 years. And he built this screen around himself. He always maintained that we were cousins whenever we were out anywhere. He'd been married, he had a daughter. His name was Jeff, whereas in fact it wasn't, it was John. And he created this screen around him. He built himself a little closet, as it were. And we had the first 15 years were quite good. But then after 15 years, he had a terrible nervous breakdown and all the truth came out. And I think that nervous breakdown was because he tried to hide himself for so long. He'd come from a very difficult family. His brothers were totally unsupportive. And that's why he was really a bit scared about going back. He then subsequently had a heart attack, and then he developed diabetes. So his health wasn't good. And over the years, he'd become very jealous, very possessive, and sometimes very difficult to motivate and get things done. And by the time we got to 2014, I was getting really, really concerned about him. And I said to him, I think we ought to go and see the GP. I'm really worried about your memory. Well, that was not the best thing to say. He was very aggressive about it, but eventually agreed so long as I went with him. And I'd started to go with him to GP surgeries anyway, because he was not remembering too well about what the doctor had said he had to do, tablets he had to take. And GP, lovely lady, said, no, I don't want you in the interview at this time. You can sit outside. So off I went. She did a simple exercise with John, called me back and she said, we have a problem. I said, okay. So she said, I'll refer you to the memory service. And unlike today, we had a very quick turnaround. He went through the memory service and was diagnosed with medium-term dementia. Now, of course, for people from the LGBT community starting to live with dementia, that puts them back to a time when it was very difficult. You lose your short-term memory. You're going back away to times like in John's case, where he was coming to terms with where he was going through his nervous breakdown, etc. So for members of the LGBT community, living with dementia is extraordinarily difficult. And we need to respect that. Now, I do a lot of training with, as I've just said, the Royal British Legion at Lister House in Ripon, doing their LGBT awareness training. As you've seen, Sue, Anne, Martina and I are part of a group doing Free to Be Me in Care, which touches on all those various issues. And so we need to be really aware of the issues that they face. I'm also a trustee of Dementia Forward now, which is the North Yorkshire and York-wide charity supporting everybody living with dementia. And we've actually now developed a whole load of LGBT-friendly paperwork. I'm actually the LGBT trustee. So yes, we're trying to make it more inclusive, and I do a lot more talks around York and North Yorkshire about the effects of dementia on the older gay community in particular. I do think we do have a big problem with the growing trans community in years to come. That could be a very difficult issue. And I know that Professor David Sheard, who's Professor of Emotional Intelligence in Care at York St John University, is very interested in this subject, and he's quite an expert on the effects of dementia and how we need to tease some of these things out. And we need members of our community, when we need care, to feel that we're in a safe space, that people aren't afraid to ask us the all-important questions, because we might not volunteer the information, but we'll obviously answer the questions. But we just need people to bear that in mind, that we can be struggling. It's not that we don't want help, it's sometimes we're not too sure how to accept help. So please bear in mind that we're not trying to be difficult. We've come a long way, but for us older ones, when those sort of things start, it puts us back to really scary times when we weren't accepted, we were abused, used, criticised, made to feel really small and not accepted. So yes, I think I've said all I want to say today. If anybody's got any questions, please be quick, because the sun is calling me.
Wow, what a whistle-stop tour that was. Thank you ever so much, Neil. It was absolutely great to hear not great, I mean, the news wasn't good. And to take us back in history was really important, absolutely fundamental to to tell us where we were and hopefully where we are. What I'm intrigued about is the fact that you said create a safe space, and that you also related to John going back in his memory, and his retentive memory was all about his previous experiences. So how is that? Could you give us an idea of what would constitute a safe space, especially when social or health care, when we're considering that, John?
When I say a safe space, if you're actually approaching a care home for care, then it needs the staff to take you into a nice room, sit you down, make you feel comfortable, and ask you all the questions. And don't be afraid to say, are you a member of the LGBT community? Can we just sort of kick it off with there? You don't just go in and say, are you a puff? That's the last thing you want to do. You want to say, are you a member of the LGBT community? How do you identify? What pronouns would you like to use? I mean, Martina's a shining example of doing pronouns. She does pronouns for us when we do Free to Be Me in Care, and it's an absolute scream. But it's really important to ask people how they wish to be addressed, where they've come from. And for some people in our community, there are certain people that we don't really want to see, and we'd like that respected because they can be sometimes a bit of a bully. Members of our own family, for example, we can be very what's the word, cut off from our families. We could be bereaved in a way from our families because we've had to come out. Why we still have to come out, God alone knows, but we do. And every day of every year, from whenever you start to come out, you are forever coming out. It's a never-ending process. It really is difficult. But
yeah, I can only imagine that adds to what you're saying with John. How many times did he have to come out in his own mind, as well as what he was experiencing when he was probably receiving support? So it would be a repeating exercise, wouldn't it? And quite painful at times.
Yeah, and of course he never really wanted to come out. That's why he always maintained we were cousins. He never really wanted to come out. But and I'm quite happy in my skin. It doesn't bother me anymore. And once John had passed away, that was it. It was pink every day for me. I couldn't care two oats.
You were out, and out, as you say, out and proud. We've got some comments here, and I mustn't forget that people are making comments. Someone said that they work in Derbyshire in a palliative care team, and they'd love for you to speak with their team if that's something you could support with.
Yes, certainly. Yes.
Great.
Yeah. Can I just point out that I'm trying to cut down a bit of work because next month I reach 8 home.
Congratulations.
I want to step back a bit if I can, but yes, yeah, I'm more than willing to help. Anything I can do, yes.
Well, with that's really fantastic, and have a happy 80th birthday.
Thank you.
Another person says, thank you for sharing your story, Neil, and reminding us, as I said earlier, of those historical dates. Oh, my word, and to think that there's 10 countries still that say it's the death penalty. That's really scary. And the person saying it, which is Talia, hello, Talia, I really hope we can build a safe space for those now and in the future from the community who require support. Very, very important. If anyone doesn't take anything else away from this, they must take away that create that safe space and actually refer, as you said, refer to people so that they feel comfortable to be who they are, loud and proud.
Exactly.
Thank you, Neil, for sharing your experiences. Someone said there, Beth.
Just before I go, Jan, people want to get in touch with me, they can get me through Sue. That's the best road to go.
We'll get that information through. Someone's is Free to Be Me in care nationwide or just based in York?
It's just York and North Yorkshire.
Right. Do you think it would be helpful?
Sue's the coordinator.
Okay, Sue's the coordinator. Sue, you're in demand. Do you think it would be, this is Quenza, said, do you think it would be helpful in the future to have care homes that cater specifically for the LGBT community, or would that cause more discrimination? What a strong question. Thank you.
Yes, it's a bit, I think a lot depends where it is for a start. I think if it's in somewhere like Brighton, that would be acceptable, or Manchester. But in certain other areas, that wouldn't be acceptable. You most probably get the school kids wolf whistling and causing all sorts of troubles outside the homes. And really, we just want to be accepted and be treated as human beings.
Absolutely, as those unique individuals that you are, and with inclusivity, because that's where you started. And I
Yes.
think it's just very timely now to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the sun.
I will indeed. Take care. Have a good time. All the best.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Right, I'd like to welcome again, who is Martina. And we've already seen, we can see you on this little screen, but we've already seen your lovely photograph. And you're going to talk to us about what it's felt like to transform in later life. Welcome, 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 Martine. Thank you.
Thank you, and yeah, thank you, Joe. It's good to be here and to have this platform. Wow, I mean, thank you for the introduction, Neil. Nothing like bigging me up a little, is there? And so, wow, yeah. Whew. How did I actually come to be involved in this? Just over 20 years ago, I sat in my car, drunk, at a place where I shouldn't have been, ready to end my life. That puts me in line with the 41% of transgendered individuals in the UK who have considered or attempted suicide. I had 4 amazing, gorgeous daughters at home. Maybe you can see that on the screen. I had a thriving business. I had a loving wife. And for years, I just wanted to die. Because I realized that I was living a double life. I was living a double life. And like many of my people in a similar situation to me, I took to the use of substances to alter the way I feel. And, you know, I used to drink to do what I needed to do and drank because I'd done them. And my early life was very much middle England, upper middle class, professional family, loving family. And yet basically there was a feeling that I just somehow sort of felt that I must have been adopted or something, because I didn't seem to fit into that role. And in those early ages, you know, I couldn't understand why guys were far more sexually attracted to me than girls. But I would do so, and I would live the life that basically people expected me to live. And so that incident in the car, that was, I'm just going to sort of try and show you a little picture of, oopsie daisy, wrong one. Never mind, that's not going to work. That incident in the car was the second time in 7 years. The first time I was literally reaching for the gun, which I used as a humane killer because I'm a veterinary surgeon, or I was until I retired a few weeks ago. And as I reached for that gun, the police arrived and arrested me. And so on the second occasion, I just somehow something sort of trigged in my brain that basically, if I was going to continue this sort of existence that I was living, I was actually going to die. And something just said, Martina, something needs to change. So I went into rehab. And the first thing I had to do when I arrived in rehab was to write my life story. And then basically only then, when I'd written it, would they allow me into the group session. I was very privileged, a very special, very, very special rehab. And when I joined the group, they were discussing somebody else's life story. So I asked for mine back. It was too late by then. This Australian counsellor said to me, his first question, have you, well, after he'd ascertained who I was, have you never considered gender realignment? I was very rude and told him it'd be far better off if he did multiplication and reproduction somewhere a long distance away, and preferably right now. And yeah, he's now a very good friend. And so somehow, in just asking me that question, gave me the ability and the drive, if you like, almost to think, well, hang on a minute, maybe there might be something in that, because I had no idea it was possible. You know, in the environment I was brought up in, thank you, Neil, for those statistics, 1969, you know, I was, my God, I was in early university and I was living a double life there. And amazingly, I actually managed to qualify. God goodness knows quite how, but anyhow. So, and then sort of, you know, I met this amazing woman, and I love her. I still love her. We had to divorce when I sort of realised that basically there was things that were in my life that were going to be non-compatible with remaining in that partnership. You may look and let's say where I'm actually speaking from, it looks a little bit like a Tarts boudoir, doesn't it? It's actually a caravan. I live in caravans, and I do that partly through choice and partly because I spent most of my money exploring the possibilities of my life after rehab, and that basically involved becoming heavily involved in a 12-step fellowship. That basically, I don't know if anybody knows anything about these fellowships, but you know, we have steps, and the fourth step is to do a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And by doing that several times and discussing that with my sponsors and my whatever God is, I have no idea what it is, but I know there's something that basically I found myself. And through being involved in that sort of fellowship and in other support mechanisms as well. And we're fortunate in York that we have an organisation called Generate, and which is basically a trans support. And by being involved in these things as well, somehow that's enabled me to gain the confidence in being me in many situations. You know, as a rural veterinary surgeon, it's sort of I don't think that common for gender realignment. And however, amazingly, when I rang the Royal College to say that I was changing my name, it was them that asked me what pronouns I wanted. And I hadn't really thought about it at that time, but they suggested MX. So I'm a MUX. And I sort of, I suppose that leads on to my pronouns as being a Z or a C, which is XE, theoretically, but it's really rather difficult to tell. And interestingly, so now that basically my transition is complete, and I was able to walk down to surgery on 8 o'clock one morning, knowing that I was knowing absolutely 100% that I was doing the right thing, and the subsequent euphoria has undoubtedly reinforced that I am now me. And actually, what I meant to ask before we started was, how long have I actually got on this? Because I think the time was running a little bit strange. So, to me is, was somebody going to tell me how long I got?
You've got 20 to 30 minutes, whichever suits, because we've made a bit of time up. So yeah, really interesting. So keep going.
I need to give time.
Martina,
Yes.
shall I put your photos up so that you can go through?
Put my photos up. Yes, I thought that they weren't going to be available. So yes, please do.
There.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. So yeah, that's very clever, Sue. I don't know how you did that. I don't do technology. It's one of the things that basically didn't allow me to sort of, caused me all sorts of problems. Me with Sandy, sat on the rockery at home, and there I am basically at graduation on the top right, 1973. In the lower picture, basically, I'm sat there on the back of the family car with my two amazing Weimaraner dogs. Do you know, I used to ride my horse down the main road from Bridlington, from York to Bridlington, when yeah, on a Sunday morning with those two dogs behind me, and yeah, I used to ride around the village at 6 o'clock in the morning as well on weekdays, and people thought when we moved, people got very upset because their alarm clock had gone. Yeah, on the right early transition, early stages of my sort of, let's say, independence, and the one in the middle, I'm at the British Equine Veterinary Association dinner dance, and I don't know whether you can see the happiness on my face, but that about sort of sums up the reality of the changes that have enabled me to be, yeah, the confident, the happy. You know, for years, my dear ex-wife would say to me, "Why are you so unhappy?" And my reply was, "I don't know." And I honestly believe that was an honest answer. You know, I knew that basically I was living a double life, but I wasn't aware at that time that necessarily it was because I was effectively trying to provide some level of internal unity or harmony within myself. I was, you know, my body, my spirit, my mind, and my heart were sort of all over the place. They were not combined. They were not together. And now I have that internal harmony. My body is as close to me as I can. My mind, I'm sure, has always been female. My heart, I'm not too sure that has a gender at all. And my spirit, well, that I'm convinced that has to be female. However, I have to say that of late, some of the changes that are going on in society and some of the nonsense that's spouted out on social media and in Parliament, you know, new premises that need a toilet have got to have 2 gender-specific toilets. Gender-neutral toilets are no longer allowed. A friend of mine was at the Olympia the other day. He said there were 2 turnstiles for the toilets. 1 female, 1 male. You had to put your 20p in the slot before you could go in. The queue for the ladies was round the block. There was no queue for the gents. And when you went through the turnstiles, you ended up in the same room. How crazy is that? And I've never felt as vulnerable using a female toilet if I'm in what's the word I'm looking for? Just gone. Hey, Neil, I think I might be needing your services before long. If I'm androgynously dressed, and especially of late, I had to go for a passport photograph at York Station. Well, York Station was the place I used to choose to go to get my digital passport photograph. And I have recently, with the weather being warm, I've recently decided that, you know, the wigs are a nuisance. They're hot and they're sweaty and they're sticky and they're difficult to maintain, and I don't look after them very well. And sometimes they don't look that great. So I gave over with the wig. And when I came out of the photo booth, I decided I needed to go to the loo. So I went into the female toilet in York Station. It's a new one and it's got a big entrance. And as I walked out, 2 young girls basically sort of were approaching. And they obviously thought that, oh my goodness, we must be in the wrong room. I said, don't worry, love, you're in the right place. It's a trans thing. And just to be able to do that, just to be able to be me, that freedom of being me, that freedom I got one day when I was walking across the Ouse Bridge in York. I'd been to a recovery cafe. It was a beautiful summer day. One of my daughters had just returned from a year in the Far East with her then boyfriend, now husband. And part way across that bridge, on my way to see my boyfriend, I don't know what happens exactly, but somebody must have looked at me strange, whatever, something. And this mythical, imaginary, invisible cloak descended upon me. It was chiffon and warm on the inside, and it was chainmail on the outside. And it said, Martina, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Does the thing that you're about to do express more of you, more of life, more of happiness, joy, and peace, and at the same time harm no one? It's okay.
Thank you,
I
Martina.
continued. I chatted to my boyfriend. We had a cuddle. I got back to my car. There was a message there from my daughter on my phone saying, "We're at home. We're back home at Mum's. Mum says that you can come as long as you don't come as Martina." I said, "I'm not coming. I'll see you tomorrow." Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't take it away from me. Please allow me to continue to be me. Thank you.
Those are very strong words that we all need to take away. Thank you so much. Would you just take the photos down, Sue? Thank you. Oh, Martina, wow. Well, there's so much that you've shared with us, and really appreciate the sharing. The fact of, you know, wanting to end that double life that you were leading for so long, and the situations that you found yourself in, and having to live that double life for so long. But now, I love the term internal harmony. You've got internal harmony, and that you should be free to be me and free to be you. And most importantly, the people that are on here have come to hear such as your story, and to come to hear the experiences that you've had. And I'm sure they would find it really helpful if there was something that from the services, if they're from, usually we're from health or social care services, if there's something that, you know, you said that one person asked you the right question. I wonder what the right question is for those to ask that are delivering those health, stroke, social care, and maybe housing services. Could I put you on the spot and ask you to think about what that might be?
Indeed, yes, and I think I might actually, to a certain extent, have an instant answer. And I'm not too sure exactly where it came from, but there was a suggestion to, and I think it was a suggestion to healthcare professionals. And incidentally, 7 out of 10 of us transgendered individuals have experienced some level of transphobia from healthcare professionals. How bizarre is that? And the question basically was, now I am. This is for anybody to say, no, look, say, no, my name is so and so, my pronouns are whatever. How would you like me to address you?
Mm.
And that basically then gives that ability, and that it invites a response that says, "Oh, I'm Ms. or I'm Miss or I'm Z or I'm."
Yeah, the MX. Yeah.
It begins a clue, but you know, I mean, for many people have had that ability to transition at a younger age. You know, I really wish that basically, well, I'd been offered, I knew what was going on, and I'd been offered puberty blockers, and I still had my own hair because it was lovely, and it was, well, you could probably see in the photograph, it looked quite good. You know, how bizarre is it that a temporary suppression of puberty has been disallowed from so many people on spurious grounds. Yeah. Anyhow, so sorry, I'm dangerous.
No, and people are in, you know, they're respecting what you've said there, and looking at the huge message that you have delivered by sharing, and how brave you've been for sharing what you have shared with us. Something, you know, you think of our topic, how you were the invisible, and how you needed to be visible, and what you were hiding was invisible but needed to be visible. And it's really brave of you to share that story, and so much appreciated. I wonder if anyone else has any questions. Please feel free to put your hand up. I'm just going to read a couple of comments. Martina, thank you for your amazing share of your life story. You're definitely an inspiration. And then what a huge message, Martina. Thank you so much for sharing. You're such a strong person for coming out and being true to yourself, your true self. I have so much more appreciation for all my wonderful trans friends having heard your personal experience. you've inspired someone there, most certainly, which is Talia. Wow, what a very brave, powerful lady. Thank you for sharing your story. Martina, you're so brave. Thank you for sharing your story. It's never too late to make changes in your life. And I think that's what people are saying there. And thank you, Martina, for sharing such a personal story with us this afternoon. Your honesty, again, is truly inspiring. And the last one I've got there, but I can see there's a hand up and I'm coming to you straight away. Thank you for sharing your amazing story. Very thought-provoking and emotional. Hopefully, will change practice in all settings. Such a brave person. Ali, would you like to ask a question?
I would, if Martina doesn't mind, please. Yeah, I found that so interesting. Thank you for sharing. I'm working in HC1, a really large care company in the UK. I'm a regional senior nurse. I've been a nurse for God knows, I won't say how long. But anyway, yeah, and I just found that so interesting. We're doing a lot of work around expressing sexuality and trying to get people to understand all of this sort of understand that when they're writing care plans and planning people's care. So it's really interesting, people's perceptions or poor perceptions. But I wanted to ask you, Martina, if you don't mind, when you went to the ball and you looked absolutely fantastic, I must say, in your gown and your dress, and that you look amazing. How are your professional colleagues with you? How was that?
Oh, you know, the acceptance was amazing. The acceptance was amazing. And that's all I can say.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be amazing. I was sort of very, very apprehensive. And you know, I remember actually that wasn't the first time that I'd been to a professional do. I many years ago, when I was sort of in the depths of my madness and alcoholism, there was a function at the Grand Hotel, no, the Cairn Hotel, was it in Harrogate, the big one that stands sort of on the opposite convention centre. And I walked into that and knocked the waitress and knocked a tray of the drinks over the floor. A few years into my sort of, let's say, transition, I attended that same room as Martina. And as I walked into that room, it was as though I had somebody walking beside me, holding my elbow, supporting me as I walked into that room. And I think, you know, I mentioned earlier, I don't believe in the sort of, let's say, the traditional Christian version of God, but I had something, there was something supporting.
You seem to be quite a spiritual woman, so.
Without a doubt, there is there's why I say about, you know, my spirit, and so when people say brave, I sort of feel a little bit embarrassed by that, to be honest, because, you know, I took it to the limit. It was only the action of these twice that stopped me that allowed me to still live. And so, yes, I have a spiritual connection without a doubt. And I think that is something that definitely helps me. I don't feel as though I'm brave. I feel that what I've done was essential if I wanted to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that's quite the same thing to me. Being brave is something that when faced with something, one has a choice. I don't believe that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering that. Thank you.
My normal response when people say, "Can I ask you a question?" I say, "You can ask me anything you like, but I reserve the right to decide whether to reply."
Sorry, I wasn't even on opening my mic. Sorry, has anyone else? Thank you very much, Martina, and thank you, Ali, for a very inspiring question. Has anyone else got any questions that would like to have? And he will choose if he's going to answer. Is that right? No, I
I'll tell you, my dear, but he's a she.
Oh, yes, you will. You will answer. Choose if you want to answer.
Bless
Right.
you.
Okay. Sue wants to come in. Sue.
Can we just talk about intersectionality, which is a horribly long and convoluted and many layered word? You're talking about individual people. They might be black. They might come from Nicaragua. They might be in a wheelchair. They might have dementia. They might be diabetic. They might be a woman. They might be a LGBT. They might be a Christian missionary. They might be an atheist. They might be they might be a young person, they might be an old person, they might be an anybody person. The bottom line is that nature produces diversity. And we just need to understand that nature produces. Haven't you watched David Attenborough and his jolly things coming out of this and looking amazingly, extraordinarily ordinary to themselves, but extraordinary to us? So just to embrace diversity, that's all I ask.
Absolutely, Sue. Embrace and celebrate, because they go together, don't they?
Yeah.
There is diversity. And I think it's really opened up a lot of my thoughts for a much broader perspective on the diversity. And coming from what was said earlier is inclusivity. And how do we make sure of inclusivity? I think there's some really key messages to take away, that people should be free to be me, whoever you are, whatever you are. Ask the right question, but don't assume either. Don't just assume. But I think there's a lot of resources that are required here to be wrapped around the situation to make sure that people feel receptive. And if I'm thinking about dignity and going back, Martina, it was said earlier about, and has been mentioned earlier, is the fact that there's some healthcare services who do not treat people as they should be treated, with inclusivity, free to be who they are, to make judgments, to stereotype, and to be unnecessarily unkind. That wouldn't surprise me, because obviously we're a dignity campaign and we can't never understand why we're going all these years on when kindness, respect and compassion isn't prevalent, isn't at the forefront. And if we treated everybody in terms of being inclusive, and if we also treated people with diversity and we treated them with kindness, respect and compassion, what a better world it would be. I can see you nodding there, Martina, because I'm sure if some of that had been afforded to you, even as a child, because it had got to go back to, as you said, how you felt as a child, as to how you feel now. And then we come back to the fact that there are lots of older people out there without children, and to give those thoughts to those individuals. Is there any more questions or comments? Oh, who's got the hand up? Is that you, Anne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Anne.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of in care homes when they say we treat everyone the same.
Oh.
That can't work, because everybody has different needs and ideals and everything. It has to be on an individual basis.
And could Anne just show you something? Because when we do our free to be me in care,
Yeah.
here she is. I can see you, dear. And it says on her, what do you say, dear?
I'm 80 years old. When will it be safe for me to come out?
Mm.
And she tells this story about her life. And Margaret's story. And at the end of Margaret's story, she says, just go from the dementia bit.
And what happens if I get dementia? Who's going to be there for me when I don't understand? Who's there to speak up for me? I'm really frightened. I'm 80 years old. When will it be safe for me to come out?
And then I say to the audience, what would you like to say to Margaret? Because she's in your care home now.
Yeah.
She's a lesbian. She does not want to come out. How are you going to signal openly and clearly to all the people who are invisible in your care that you can be trusted, because it's a matter of trust? Your rainbow lanyards, you're flying the flag, you're meeting and having rainbow muffins, your socials, how are you showing, how are you saying, how are you making explicit on your website before people come, at your interviews, when you're interviewing them, when you go and visit people, how are you making absolutely clear to everybody that you can be trusted with our stories?
That is about building relationships, and very positive relationships, to ensure that people feel safe and people feel that they can be who they are. And yes, it's especially an issue if people have dementia, people have any other conditions which you listed, Sue. Someone has put in the chat there that I think this training should be mandatory for all organisations. And there is something to be said about whether what CQC are looking for, the Care Quality Commission, when they're looking at the regulations. And with those quality statements, when we're looking at personalisation, are people really in every care service or healthcare service, are they free to be me? Are they able to say who they are, what their needs are, and express themselves? Or are they living a double life? And my experiences as well from a care home perspective as well, was a gentleman that hid the fact that he was gay because he was afraid of other residents. And he was afraid of not the staff, and he would talk to the staff, but he wouldn't tell the other residents. So it's also looking at what's going on, not just how we discuss it as staff members or as a workforce. It's actually, how do we support people to live in a care home with other residents that may not be as inclusive as the people that are delivering the service. I thought it just reminded me of a situation. And Liz has said, Liz Murray, sorry, it's very small writing. It's worth looking at. It is worth looking at skills for care framework for LGBTQ inclusion created by Trish Hafford, Letchfield. This has lots of useful resources. And also Claire Summer Skills Play at the Rainbow's End is also starting to be shown around the country. What a great idea for a variety of resources. Thank you. Right, I think we're at 2:19 now. Is there any other, well, Martina, thank you so much. I must come back and say thank you and just finish that slot off. And thank you to Sue and Anne, and thank you so much to Neil too. Well, I hope he's enjoying himself and not getting too hot over there in sunny Lanzarote. Thanks everybody for joining us. We really do appreciate. If anybody's got any thoughts, any comments, we will be doing another Zoom in a couple of months' time. And we are using this same theme again, making the invisible visible. We'll also be putting on some Zooms, and that's about our responsibilities to work with the Care Quality Commission on their project or their campaign to care to share for better care. Share for better care, that's the words. I can't get them out now. Share for better care. And really importantly, there is a survey out there. The website is available. And that is, again, if we're looking at today's agenda and we're looking at people being able to share their experiences, and they want to know if it's been a positive experience and they want to know if it's been a negative experience, but they will be collecting the information that will make a difference to how the standards are judged. So please have a look on the CQC website and on our website too, to be able to pick up the information regarding that and to be able to put your points of view forward. And if you have experiences, please share them. Anne, Sue, Martina and Neil, thank you so much. And Anne did it, and Sue did a great job on organising this. This was a really easy one for us, so we really appreciate it. And how wonderful.
Thank you
bring
for
this
having
forward.
us.
Thank you
for
so
You're very
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've given you 9 minutes back now to go and do some great work that you're going to do, or to have that lunch that you didn't have. There will be information will come out, the link will come out to you, and you can, we've asked Anne and Martine and Neil and Sue, if they don't mind, they are happy for this to share, and they will be sharing it themselves and doing a bit of editing, I hear, with all your prowess. Sue, thank you. We've got lots of thank yous. It's been really beneficial, and we really do appreciate you attending, and the Dignity Council at the forefront there, promoting every part of this campaign to get that inclusivity so that people can be free to be who they are. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. The rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.